Stories of the Saints. Saint Francis and Saint Clare. Francesco Bernardone was a young man with money and wanted to live life to the full. As the son of a rich cloth merchant, he had plenty of chances to do that. For Francis, living life to the full meant music, good clothes, and having a great time with his friends. He was fun and popular. He knew how to party. He lived in Assisi, an Italian town, where fighting broke out between Assisi and the next town, Perugia. Francis chose the excitement of being a soldier and rode into battle. It wasn't so exciting when he was injured and taken prisoner and remained in prison for nearly a year. But prison gave him thinking time and praying time. After he was freed, his old way of life didn't appeal to him anymore. He had planned to do more soldiering, but his heart was no longer in it. He was more interested in helping a leper than in galloping into battle. Back in Assisi, he went to the little chapel of Saint Damien to pray. It was a neglected chapel, almost falling down, and it was the place where Francis heard God speaking to him. "Francis," said the voice, "my church is falling into ruin. Build it for me." At first, Francis supposed that he had to rebuild the little chapel, and he sold his horse to pay for the work. Only God mattered to him now, and he wanted to live as Christ lived, serving the poor and needy. He gave away all he had and a lot of cloth from the family's warehouses, which enraged his father. His parents wanted him to settle down, get married, and stop giving away the family's merchandise. But Francis said that he had embraced lady poverty. He owned nothing but the clothes he wore. At a monastery, he begged for work. Everything he got, he shared with the poor, barely keeping enough to feed himself. Yet, he had a great joy in living. Lepers were believed to be so infectious that nobody would go near them. But Francis cared for them. Everywhere he went, he taught about Jesus. Other men came to join him, and the ministry of the little poor man began. Not only men wanted to live the simple life. Clare, a young noble woman, was 18 and very beautiful, and had already received 2 proposals of marriage. She left home, cut off her hair, and asked to join Francis's order. It meant going hungry, sleeping on a hard bed, and shivering through the winter. But she threw herself into the life. Other wealthy young women joined them, including Clare's sister, Agnes. To Francis, everything God had made was part of the same family. Sun, moon, stars and sky, earth and water were brothers and sisters to Francis. He talked to animals and birds and advised fish not to get caught. One of Francis's companions once rescued a rabbit from a trap and, wondering what to do with it, brought it to Francis. It jumped straight into his lap and stayed there while he told it to be more careful in the future and not to get trapped. He put it down so it could run away, and it jumped back up again. The companion who'd brought it carried it to the shelter of the trees. But as soon as his back was turned, the rabbit followed him back to Francis and climbed into his lap again. It had to be taken half a mile into the forest before it finally decided to stay away. The people of Gubbio sent for Francis because they were terrified. A big hungry wolf had come to their little town, prowling for food. It preyed on farm animals and on people too. They hardly dared to leave their houses, and no child was allowed to play outside. They huddled inside their homes and watched from the windows as Francis walked to the town. The wolf had seen him too. As Francis approached, it crouched ready to spring. It had tasted human flesh already and wanted more. It tensed, snarled, and sprang for Francis's throat. Francis raised one hand and made the sign of the cross. There must have been power in that gesture because the wolf stopped in midair and landed crouching at his feet. "Brother Wolf," said Francis, "this won't do." The wolf cowered before him. "Brother Wolf," continued Francis, "what do you think you're doing? Stealing from these good people and eating people. Don't you know how bad that is? You are hungry. We all get hungry. But Wolf, eating people?" The wolf lowered his head. It looked sorry. "Now, Wolf," Francis went on kindly, "you did it because you were hungry, very hungry. I sometimes go for days without eating too. So this is what I'll do. I'll tell these people to feed you and take care of you. On your part, you must leave them in peace." The wolf raised a paw to show that it understood. "Good Wolf," said Francis, and he walked to the town with the wolf following at his heels, like a well-trained dog. The people crept from their houses, holding tightly to their children's hands, while Francis explained that they must look after the wolf, and that the wolf had promised not to eat them. They kept their promise. So did the wolf, and in time, Gubbio became very proud of it. One of the remarkable facts about Francis is that the marks of the crucifixion showed on his hands and feet. During a night of prayer, he had a vision of Christ in which these marks suddenly appeared, and he carried them for the rest of his life. Francis asked Clare to begin a separate group for women. At first, they were known as the Poor Ladies, but later they became known as Poor Clares, and still are. To them, poverty was joyous freedom, but Clare herself was often ill, sometimes too ill to go to Mass. She didn't mind going without warm clothes and good food, but missing Mass was a hardship. In a hut made of timber and plaster is a room with one tiny high window. It is dim even in the daylight, and this is late on Christmas Eve. One candle shines a little light on a small bed with rough blankets. In the bed, Clare is propped up on pillows. She looks thin and pale. She passes her rosary beads through her fingers as she whispers her prayers and thinks of the old, beautiful story of the birth of Jesus. Her friend Francis will be telling that story at Mass that evening. He will even bring animals into the church and fill a manger with straw, so that people can feel that they are in the Bethlehem stable. As she prays, a light begins to glow on the wall opposite. Pictures appear. She is looking at the church filled with people singing their Christmas hymns. Frances leads the animals into church. She can even see the wounds on his hands. When the singing is over, Frances tells that lovely story of Jesus Christ coming to earth as a helpless child for love of us all. The bread and wine are brought to the table. The people kneel. Presently, a sister comes to her room. "I thought you might be lonely, Mother Clare," she says. "I know you wanted to go to Mass." "God is good," says Clare in contentment. "I have all I need." The end.